So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody. Thanks so much for taking the time to join our session today, Empowering Women in the Shelter Sector. My name is Lisa Smith. I'm an architect, urban designer, and technical advisor. And I'm delighted to be facilitating the session today on behalf of a large group of over 200 women in the sector. This movement of women, which we colloquially call the Awesome Women in Shelter, started as a small WhatsApp group amongst 6 friends. And since January, it's grown to over 200 women across 3 different social network platforms. The women in this group come from a multitude of organizations and across a range of countries. But in the session today, we are independently representing ourselves and our collective rather than our individual organizations. This is an informal group that it offers a safe space for women to share their experiences and challenges. It provides support and solidarity, and it helps people find opportunities, mentorships, and further learning. Recently, we had the privilege of listening to an all-female panel at the UK Shelter Forum, who I would say bravely shared their stories about what it's like to work as a woman in the shelter sector. They presented many challenges that resonated deeply with myself and I'm sure many women across the sector. They also presented the positive changes that can be seen in programming by having more balanced and diverse shelter teams and having more women in leadership roles. I'd like to take a minute to highlight that sharing stories like this requires extra energy from our female colleagues. Women are often, I would say, forced to expend energy in dealing with daily frustrations, such as getting their voices heard or having a seat at the decision-making table. I think extra energy is also needed to fight for equality in the sector. Sorry, somebody's mic is muted. And they need a lot of emotional energy, honestly, to share experiences that are sometimes harrowing and I would say damaging to the lives of the women we work with. So I think in this session, it's important to acknowledge this extra work and ask the men in our lives and our sector to find ways to lift and shoulder some of this burden. I'd encourage everyone to take a look at that recording if you haven't seen it, and we'll be sharing that link during the session. So in this session today, we're going to watch a short video that comes from the range of voices of the women in our group. They'll be sharing some important results from a recent survey that we conducted, and they'll also be posing provocative questions about what we can do next. We'll then break out into 4 discussion groups for about 20 minutes, and that's to facilitate a deeper discussion around what we mean by positive change and how we can do actions, bring actions forward, and who needs to play a role in those actions. We'll then return to plenary, and one of our facilitators will spend 2 or 3 minutes highlighting the most important topics that came up during those discussions. We will be sharing as well the report that relates to the survey that's highlighted during the video, and that will be coming out in the next few weeks. So we'd really encourage everybody here to sign up to the contact sheet that we will be sharing so that you can receive a copy of those results. So I won't take very much time. We've only got 45 minutes. So I'm going to ask Amelia if she can do the honors of sharing the video, please.
Amelia, your computer's
Sound is not coming up.
Amelia, you're muted.
Okay, That will help. Should be fine now. Right, ready?
Amelia, it's not coming up yet.
Is it not working?
Nope.
No,
No, I'm watching it.
I'm enjoying it. I'm just losing it.
Showing.
Beauties of technology.
Okay.
Can you see it now?
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry, I should have practiced this. Right. Okay. Should be. Right. It's okay.
There's no audio, Amelia.
Okay, sorry, I've done everything that I'm meant to do. So I've shared. Let me try one more time. Try now.
Do you feel isolated
not, we'll
working
just
as a
have to
woman
send
in the shelter sector?
Did you know most shelter teams severely lack female representation?
Did you know 23% of women in the sector have never had a female manager?
Did you know that 58% of women in the sector faced job insecurity due to pregnancy and carrying responsibility?
Did you know that 64% of us believe that current gender equity policies are insufficient to address the challenges we face at work by being women?
Did you know 55% of women in the sector have experienced gender discrimination?
Did you know 43% of women have seen negative impacts on programming because of gender imbalance in their teams?
Do you know women who work in male-dominated industries are more likely to be sexually harassed?
How can we all work together to ensure women are supported in their shelter roles?
How can we encourage more women to join our shelter teams?
How can we promote female leadership in the sector?
How can we advocate for contracts that promote better job security and ensure adequate maternity leave?
How can we improve participation and develop more responsive and relevant measures?
How can we put in place better safeguarding policies to protect our female co-workers?
How can we ensure gender balance to support the women in our communities more effectively?
How can we increase allyship so our male co-workers call out and report harassment?
It's time for change.
Il est temps que cela change.
ये समय है बदलाव का.
حان وقت التغيير.
We believe that women of all ages, backgrounds, races and cultures, and those in the LGBTQ community should be able to thrive working in the shelter sector.
We want to talk about positive action for sector transformation.
We are women in shelter.
We're a movement of over 200 women working in the shelter sector, and we're just getting started.
Join us to see how we can create a better future together.
Great. Thanks a million, Amelia. And thank you so much to everybody in that video who gave their time and energy to create that, and to Fiona Kelling for her wonderful editing that took plenty of time. So thanks very much. We will now break out into the 4 sessions. There's actually quite a lot of people in the groups. But we would just encourage everybody to really contribute and talk as much as possible. We will have 2 facilitators in each group. One will kind of be leading the discussion, and we also have a Jambo board where we'll be collecting thoughts. So if you don't kind of get to contribute directly to the conversation, we would encourage everybody to put their thoughts on that board, and we'll collect everything together at the end. So just to highlight the 3, I suppose, questions that we will be dealing with during the discussion. The first one is, what examples can we give that have addressed gender inequality, I would say, within our workspaces? So perhaps increased female representation, something that's responded to the specific needs of women, or something that has perhaps empowered female leadership. The other question then, the next step would be, what additional steps and actions do we think are required to take some of these gaps, I would say, and challenges forward? And then the last question connects to the second one, which is, who has a role to play in accomplishing some of these changes? So I would just really encourage everybody to deeply think, I suppose, about some of these changes, and just have a very open, healthy conversation, I guess. So if we can just move to the breakout rooms now, Renee, thanks.
All right, they're starting. A minute or so. Hi there, Seyfullah and Sadia.
Hi. Hi,
I'm
good
trying
afternoon.
to assign you, but you're not showing up as not assigned, so I think there's an issue with your being assigned to the Teams meeting, which happens sometimes.
What do we do? How do we do this?
I don't know. We can have a breakout room here, I guess.
Excellent, excellent.
But we need a Jamboard, so that's going to be. Let me see. I have the Jamboard, I think. Yes.
Hello,
I have it.
Renee. Do you hear me?
I hear you, Seyfullah. How are you?
That is good. I'm in. Yeah.
You're with us here.
You are in Slavyansk.
Yeah, no, Kharkiv.
Kharkiv now. Okay. That's
Yes.
nice. How are things there?
Hi, colleagues.
So
Hi.
that is, if I do this. Okay. So let me check. So Bia, we tried to assign you to the room, but then it's still not working. So you'll be in our room. You're on mute.
I was supposed to facilitate the thing with Amelia, and I can't get into that room.
No, I can't assign you. Sorry to say.
Yes, it's
so
just...
you're going to join us here in the so the Asia Shelter Center guest, Tasia. We're going to assign you to a room, but the rest of us here, we can't be assigned. Or I can be assigned, but I'm here because I'm helping people be allocated.
Sure.
So if you actually want to share the Jamboard, since you were supposed to facilitate, that would be great rather than me doing it.
Okay, I'm in a different computer. It will just take a minute. Jamboard. Do you have the Jamboard link?
No. I have it. Yeah, actually, I could share it if
that
no problem. But then I will be doing a bit of double hatting. So.
Because I am now on my work computer that was another computer that I've gotten myself. Yeah.
But somebody will have to tell me when everybody comes back because now I can't see the chat. So if I do it this way.
Okay.
If that happens, we'll tell you. How long was this exercise? Like how long?
10 minutes.
20 minutes.
Oh,
20 minutes.
20 minutes.
Maybe I'm going to share the screen precisely that way I don't mess up. No, that's Amelia Nice chat. Sorry. I don't know.
Yes, good chat. Excellent.
Okay. Yes.
You had it there. There it is.
Okay. Right, there it is. Ready?
Yes, go ahead.
Let's go.
Okay. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Hi. So in our working group, again, this is like a plenary session where we are thinking about the three major questions. And Renee, I am seeing myself here. Yes. So if you could just on the past experiences or your current experiences, if you can talk about examples that we can give that can promote or address gender equality. And then what kind of additional steps or actions do you think that are required for the same? And the third question is, who has the role to play in in accomplishing these kind of actions that we're talking about? So if you can start writing in that Jamboard, does everybody have an access to the Jamboard link?
I don't have.
Okay, let me see.
Yeah, I can open it.
You can open it?
Let me just copy and paste it for the chat. I mean, this means you'll temporarily see something else on my screen.
Okay, let me try again here. It's just working across computers and phone is crazy.
Yes. So Sadia and I both posted it.
Okay. So once I open this, then I can, Renee, you could leave the screen sharing. Yeah?
Okay, sure.
Let's see. It's happening now. You can, there it is. And so can I share my screen now?
Yes, you can. So you need to go to the arrow that says share content. Oh, Antonia, let's see if we can allocate you. I'm not sure I can. No, Antonia, sorry, your connection is unstable, so I can't allocate you, but you can join our group now. So sorry about that.
Okay. So I see people are already writing in it. Yeah. . Can you all see this screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So we are good to go. So I don't know how many people are here in this group. So, Renee, how many people are we in this group?
Oh, Kostya, привет. I'm going to move you to a room, Kostya. Bye. So, Teams is really weird. So now we're 9 in this group, and then I'm trying to, people that are arriving, I'm trying to move. If I can assign them, because one group got less people somehow.
Okay. So does anybody want to contribute their experiences by examples as a response to answer the question 1?
Cabalia, I have put in a post-it that I would like to share, and it's about the equal visibility on panels of women of color. That is notably low when you look at our even Global Shelter Cluster panels or the UK Shelter Forum. Hence, we did this entire thing. So that's my suggestion, like looking actively for women colleagues to be on those panels so that they get visibility too. Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else?
So I put one that I think is common in our sector. So, you know, examples that have addressed gender inequality. So a lot of agencies, like other post-it notes said, they have HR policies in place that are supposed to prevent like gender inequality and practices that result in discrimination against women. Like one of them for the UN is gender parity in at least the interview stage. And I've actually read that admin instruction. And so when you look at it on paper, it's something quite concrete. But actually, there was a good speech that Christine Lagarde made when she was looking at, you know, makeup of women in the IMF and in the public sector. And she was saying that, yeah, we have a lot of those HR policies in place, but it's the interpretation of those policies when it comes to actually choosing women to be in that role. And I think because we're in such a technical sector that oftentimes there's loopholes of the interpretation into how you do them in practice. So a colleague can say, oh, I'm technical, so my opinion means that, oh, this woman, she won't be very good, or like this one, she's, you know, maybe not qualified. So and then because that colleague is recognized as technical, the organization gives weight to that kind of assessment, even though that might not be an accurate or fair assessment based off of, you know, standard facts that would put women in the organization. And I think that's still why we have gender parity laws, because in a lot of cases, we are still far from reaching gender parity in you know, technical roles, but also in programmatic roles and even information management roles that we see like a lot more men having the opportunities where women, you know, might not be nominated or might not even get to an interview stage. So I think this is some concrete example that, I mean, it's not only unique to shelter, because obviously it goes across the whole public sector, but I think, and that's why I also put like one of the recommendations should also be more HR policies, more like documentation of like concrete case studies of how are we actually, you know, ensuring that we're reaching gender parity at interview stage, test phase, selection stage.
I agree with that. So in terms of this particular example, we would say that these would be the additional steps that would be required, right? The HR policy, for instance, needs to have a look at things.
Yeah, and I think the policy is in place, but how do we interpret that policy? And I think there's a lot of gray area.
So would you like to write about it in terms of in the role to play in accomplishing these actions? Could this be one of the things that should come out here?
Yeah, we can put
someone who's in the hiring position, and how are they interpreting? And then someone talk about wide information campaign about this issue. So some kind of, around these kind of lines, some kind of campaigning needs to be done so that people get aware.
Yeah, I think it's also, it's HR, but it's also managers in our sector, and that could be senior managers. It can even be middle managers.
Yeah, I agree with Renee's comment there. It's like who you ask for that opinion. And it's often the same people, and so then they refer to the same people, and that's a very clear pattern unfortunately, not only in ours, but in our sector, it's kind of, that's the sector I know best. So it's very clear, like, who do you ask? Who gets that visibility? Who gets on the interview? It's a very clear pattern of referring sometimes between men, to be very honest. And so that makes that a brilliant policy is not actually really implemented or just half implemented.
Anyone else?
Hi, Saifullah Mehrabi. Yeah, disturb you. I support the colleagues for the point about the women in color, the absence of women in color shelter team. The female colleagues. It is very obvious and it's not presented as much we hope or we wish for it. And also, I would like to suggest about the regional balance of participation of colleague, or give them the opportunity to have this opportunity to be selected or to be hired as part of shelter team among the female colleagues. Thank you. Over.
Can I just add to what the colleague just said about women of color? I would also include young women. Okay, we know maybe young women might have less experience, but still they're not involved that much in these situations. And I believe they would have really fresh ideas to contribute to.
Okay.
Thank you.
But it's what would you say that this will go in question number 2 as an answer to question number 2? A kind of age a proper age representation across.
Yes. Yes, I think it would go in number 2. Or I don't know if there is a sticker. I can read them all. Talking about
read that.
The age. Like it was just to add to the already commented women of color.
Sure.
Or either we can add or just make it separately. But I would say also this would be also something to keep in mind.
So we could just say that people of color, and in terms of with their gender, age, race, all these. So we can club that particular thing.
Yes, I think so. It would be easier and efficient. Thank you.
No, thank you. We need to assign someone who would be presenting this particular thing from our conversations right now. Would anybody want to volunteer?
I vote for you.
Oh, I'm trying to give you guys some kind of space.
Me too. I vote for you.
Yeah, it's better you.
My brother Saifullah there.
try not to do much more than what I'm doing because I do a lot for this meeting already. So the less they
Renee
say
is
of
doing
me, the
5
better.
different things.
agree,
Thank you, Renee.
So in terms of, let's just start to, because I think we are now in the last few minutes. So we can, if there is any other examples that we want to bring on the table that address gender inequality from your experiences. So I don't know how many people do we have here because I can't see my screen.
So we have 7 here.
We have 7. And have we heard from everybody? Is there anyone else who wants to contribute to the conversation?
Okay, the colleagues are very inactive. I would like to. Okay, I think defined the gender priority. We know that there is really this is an issue. I would like an issue, and I would like to add to this point also diversity among the female colleagues as much as we could to find out in terms of, I don't know, many others diverse let's say, categories that could be found. This is also important to female also among the female colleagues, diversity is also important. Thank you.
People are coming back now to the main plenary, so the groups are closing.
Whoops, have I been?
Are we all back in plenary?
Yeah. We're all coming back.
Oh,
we're back in plenary there.
We're back in plenary.
Clearly not enough time
was
to
sudden.
discuss the issue.
Well, welcome back, everybody. I don't know, we all seem to be pinged back without knowing we were going to be here. So is everybody kind of ready? I know we were, well, our discussion perhaps didn't focus in the boxes so much, but it was certainly still very interesting. So would Laura or Amelia, would one of your groups like to share back?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to give a quick fire feedback because I didn't give this job to anybody else. Yeah, I mean that time flew by, and we were just about to start talking about who has a role to play. So obviously this is a conversation that we still need to keep having. So people can still pop things in the Jamboard during the rest of the session. 2 of the top things we talked about were recruitment processes and job advertising, and that even if we are we're saying proactively on the job description that women should apply for these positions, and that has been the case for the last 10 to 15 years, and that hasn't necessarily resulted in better representation of women in shelter teams. So we talked about examples of more anonymous recruitment processes and technical tests when recruiting staff, but with no gender listing, and other measures like that. And one more interesting one we talked about was thinking about childcare or caring responsibilities when we're required to travel for work. And the benefits of traveling for work for your careers are very high, but if you're restricted by caring responsibilities at home, then how can organisations better facilitate or support parents to travel and to deploy? So over from me.
Great. Thanks so much, Amelia. I don't know if anybody has anything else to add to that. If not, I'll hand over to Laura, if that's okay, or who's reporting back from your side?
It's Ida who's going to report back from our group.
Great.
Yeah, I can share some interesting key points based on the discussion that actually, on having a gender balanced team, it will be impacted for a more impactful programming in the shelter in particular. And then it's also based on some of the participants share on how the base of the recent shelter event, there's a value of having a diverse skill and approaches that can be combined based on this different or various background in terms of like the gender. And then there are also from the Jamboard is mentioned that how important having a female staff, because some of the group, a women group, they prefer to talk or share their thoughts to women, and even in some culture it will be more appropriate to talk amongst the women, and I think this is very important for our sector, especially if you want to focus or shift the paradigm to see a shelter as a more approach and community center people approach. If we are using the people approach center, we have to consider this by having women more in their shelter roles as added value for us, so we can reaching out more with the community and having a better communication and consultation with the community. But I think, Laura, we are in the middle of a very interesting discussion before we went back to this plenary group. Maybe you want to add something, please.
Sure, I can do. Yeah, just before we got brought back to the main group, we were talking a little bit about training and training opportunities and how there's sort of obviously in some parts of our sector there's an existing gender imbalance. I mean, obviously across our sector as a whole there's a gender imbalance, but within certain parts of it there's specific imbalances in certain skill areas. And so then if we're running especially sort of more like introductory trainings that are essentially training the cohort that's going to make up the future of that part of a sector, then how do we make sure that that we have not just aiming for like 50-50 balance, but aiming for more women than men potentially, so that can help to address an existing imbalance, so that then you'd have hopefully gender parity overall. But then also thinking about when putting trainings together, like thinking also in terms of if you're going to have a big cohort and then break everyone down into smaller groups for group work and things, then at a bare minimum making sure that you have enough women so that women aren't constantly put in groups where they're the only woman. If you're the only woman with a group of men constantly, then making sure that at least you have a sort of a 40%, like obviously it should be more, but like bare minimum making sure you're not putting women in situations where they're having to do a piece of group work on gender-based violence and they're the only woman in a group of 5 men that they're working on it with. So yeah, just some thoughts on trainings.
Great, thanks Laura, and thanks Ida. We'll keep going because I know we're running out of time, and it seems everybody ran out of time. We're all in the middle of interesting discussions when we came back. So Dipti, I'll hand over to you or Fiona, if that's okay.
Yes, Fiona, you're gonna summarize our group, right?
Yeah, so I also find it a very the time went very quickly. I think our discussions, some really interesting points were still made. I think one around just how this whole issue is really a matter of cultural change, and that means that we're addressing a really difficult topic, and that it's difficult to actually see change in that respect. And an important point on the who has a role to play, just about integrating men in the discussion. A man making this point that they're part of the problem and therefore they have to be part of the solution, but that many men may not be aware of the issues that are being faced and of the role that they've got to play. I think a couple of other interesting points went around STEM and kind of encouraging girls to study more of the science subjects or technical areas to try and encourage their recruitment kind of in technical teams, but also at the same time understanding that the skills that are needed by shelter practitioners now are not necessarily only technical ones, and that by taking a team's approach, we can actually encourage more people with soft skills to be joining as well, and making more in terms of advertising those jobs within organizations so that they know that they exist. And then lastly, a point around having maybe a quota for hiring. I think some organizations already do this, but yeah, trying to address some of that imbalance.
Just wanted to add one more thing, which I thought also came out in our group, which was interesting, which was, and it was also said by a man, but it was more looking at kind of, we are here and we have this privilege and we need to be aware of it. And I think that's kind of at the root of what we're starting to do, right? I mean, there is that kind of lack of awareness, which is the first step for any action to take place. And there needs to be more of an understanding to, apart from we know that it is deep rooted, but to kind of understand why, what are the reasons for this dynamic, and be aware of it as a first step. I don't know if there's anything else anyone else from our group wants to add. But thanks.
No. Okay, great. Thanks very much. Martha, I'll pass it over to you if that's okay.
Yes, certainly.
We didn't get to finalize the priorities, but
so I'll share my screen quickly. So yeah, we got a bit stuck in the first question, and some of the members of the group, they pointed out that in the last years, it is true that some internal policies of agencies and organizations have been changing, especially to protect women during maternity leave. But this happens in the organization. Some other consultants, females, which are not, let's say, covered or protected by these bigger groups, have struggled with this. And then we drifted on to especially pointing out some of the challenges that women in the group had faced. And some of those, or the main one that came up, was that for a women architect or a women technician to be taken seriously, depending on the context, sometimes it was very hard, and the women had to bear with nicknames, or in a way have this imposter syndrome attitude to be able to let's say, to be part or to be accepted in a group. And definitely that was the main challenge that most of the women in the group faced, that it was difficult sometimes to be heard in male-dominated contexts. So we didn't move a lot further than that. I see that there are some comments on what steps should be taken. And one of them is gender balance teams for a better response. Also considering the local policies, laws, social, cultural aspects in each context to be able to respond better and probably not to damage even more the place of the vulnerable groups, and support and protect women during maternity leave. Those were the main issues.
Great, thanks very much, Martha. Sabia, did you want to add something? I think you had your hand up. Or
no, I was just wondering, I was just wondering, are we done with all the groups so we can come to the group one?
I think we've fed back now on all of the groups, and we've run out of time. Obviously, we need a much longer session to to discuss this topic.
If you want to add anything,
there was actually 5 groups because there was a group 1B that got sorry,
because I
okay, please feedback quickly. Apologies for that.
Very, very quickly, then I will just, because most of the things have been talked about, but there were a few important things that was in details were discussed in our group. We were also talking about, when we were talking about representation of females, we are talking about the age representation as well, where the younger women should also be given the chance. When we are talking about the HR policies, we are also talking about, most of the things have been talked about, but we are also talking about the privileges that people do come with the definitions, perhaps that needs to be campaigned properly and addressed at the hiring manager level or the person who's making these policies, but not just stopping there. How are we interpreting these policy? And one of the things that we also talked about the harassment at workplace, but it was more about educating that how women get bullied with the male colleagues in the field, not just in the field, but also at times in head offices and field offices. And very quickly, last, I think there's this idea, even in the head of women, about gender stereotype. If there is a male dominant scenario or an environment, they might not flourish. And that also needs to be addressed. So internally, I hope I have covered everything quickly.
Great, thanks, Amaya. Sigdem, did you want to add? Sorry, I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Apologies.
It's fine. It's nearly fine. It's Çiğdem. Hi, from Istanbul. Yeah, I'm doing my PhD. I'm an architect on emergency shelters. I'm very, very glad to be with you, with this group. And while I was listening the conversations, I was just something came up to my mind. I'm not sure if it's gonna help with the issue or not. But as women, I can just talk about my experiences because I'm a woman. Maybe the man has the same things that I'm going to talk about. But as women, we are very, very strong while dealing with the life crisis on daily basis, right? Like if anything comes up during the like with our kids or other stuff, we just immediately like emergently deal with the crisis, right? It's instinctive. But when we want to work in a science-oriented works like construction, other stuff or management stuff, they ask us maybe not verbally, but to be toughen up. But already we are tough enough to deal with the, you know what I mean? Like most of us are better with the daily based crisis than men actually. We are more tough than them. But when we want to be in the workplace, it's I mean, I can feel that it's a necessity that they ask for us to toughen up. Just that came to my mind. I'm curious about your opinions. I hope it will help in our discussion. Thank you. So excited. Thank you.
Thank you. See them. And we're out of time, so we do have to go. We don't have time to kind of recap. But what I will say, just one feeling was about the commonality. So one of the men in our team actually spoke about their feelings and their feelings of imposter syndrome, and I thought it was kind of nice to perhaps know that there was those commonalities maybe of insecurity as well, and perhaps those are places where we can take the discussion forward by identifying, I think, commonalities also. So thanks very much, I guess, basically. And we had a great group of people and a great discussion. Please sign up to those different groups that Amelia's sharing there and the contact sheet if you want the survey. And I guess we need to keep talking, but take care.
But not now.
Not now, exactly. Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Bye bye.
Take care.
Thanks,
Amazing
everyone.
women.